I'm a Bud Light guy. We're going to talk about it. I want you to finish where you were going, though, first.
Sure. If you have a Cougar or a Lift, and that's like, oh my gosh, this is so much better than Bud Light, you're probably going to keep trying things to go down your journey as a craft beer drinker and eventually come here and eventually go to those other places. So it's really not competition. We're looking to harvest those Bud Light drinkers.
Y'all ready for this?
Welcome to the Be Different Brewery Tour. First stop, Listermann's. Produced and edited by co-hosts Nick Given and Greg Witcher. Hosted as always by Brad Redford.
Today we are at Listermann Brewing Company here off Dana Avenue, and this is a little bit of a rebrand for the Be Different podcast. This will be our first of a 6-part series covering breweries here in Cincinnati, and we are excited to be hosted by GM here at Listermann Brewing Company, Jason Brewer. Jason, thank you for having the Be Different podcast in your area. We're in your zone. It's a work day. It's a Wednesday morning, but thank you for taking the time to be with us.
Absolutely. Happy to be here.
Do you still feel okay that we're here and we're going to conduct this interview? You're not going to kick us out quite yet.
I'm not. Well, maybe for being a Xavier player, but other than that.
And we will get to that later. Jason is an avid UC fan. Obviously, I am a very avid Xavier fan. We'll get to that later and maybe discuss who's better and who's in a better position as we look into next year. But Jason, can you let the listeners know kind of who you are, what your position is here at Listermann's?
Sure. My name's Jason Brewer, and that is my last name. Born with it.
Great name.
You didn't change it for this job?
I did not. General manager here at Listermann Brewing Company. So we kind of break this company down into 3 separate parts. We have the homebrew store, which has been in business since 1995. We have the brewery, which has been here since 2008, and the tap room, which has been open since around 2012. Back in 2012, there was a law change that helped breweries in the state of Ohio. And what that law did was allow for tap rooms to open. Kind of one of the things where we say politics at work. Beer is one of the most regulated industries in the world. And before 2012, you either had to be a brew pub or be a massive brewery to sell your beer throughout the country. You could not sell beer on site at your brewery. And so when that changed, there was only 3 breweries, I believe, in Cincinnati, us, Rivertown, and Mount Carmel being the first that existed. And Mount Carmel and Rivertown were both larger, massively distributing, and we were just a small, kind of doing it for fun sort of thing. So when that law changed, it made it easier for smaller breweries to open up. You could open up and sell a pint of beer for $5, $6, $7 at your location versus selling it to a distributor at 50 cents a pint to then sell to bars who made all the money.
All right, so just to clarify here, this law change in 2012, it really changed the game for breweries. Back in 2012, there were only around 2,000 breweries across the country. Fast forward to today, and there are well over 7,000.
So it was able to make money being a much smaller brewery, and that really opened the door for all the breweries to open. Madtree, Rheingeist, would they still exist? Probably. Mm-hmm. They're big breweries now, but breweries like us, like Brink, like Streetside, those breweries probably wouldn't be where we are today without that law changing, allowing customers to come buy beer from us.
Well, I'd imagine all the those who work in the brewery industry in the city are aware of each other. I mean, how is that competition? Like, do you get along with other breweries, or is there a little bit of heated competition between groups?
There's no competition between us for several reasons. The day we start competing with Madtree, Braxton, Rheingeist is the day we lose. They're able to make beer cheaper, better, great marketing on both those sides. But also, craft beer is only 12% of the market. So we're trying to gain those Bud Light drinkers. Mm-hmm. If they have a Cougar.
Ooh, so I'm a Bud Light drinker. Go ahead. We're going to discuss this.
You've got a recruit coming up.
Yeah, I'm a recruit right now. I'm a Bud Light guy. We're going to talk about it. I want you to finish where you were going, though, first.
Sure. If you have a Cougar or a Lift, and that's like, oh my gosh, this is so much better than Bud Light, you're probably going to keep trying things to go down your journey as a craft beer drinker and eventually come here and eventually go to those other places. So it's really not competition. We're looking to harvest those Bud Light drinkers. And
it's more of an awakening for you, Brad.
Yeah, it is. I mean, I would consider myself kind of a craft beer novice in many ways. Like, I go to breweries, but I don't completely understand what the heck is going on.
I would say
I'm
more
used
like
to
beginner.
I wouldn't
Probably
say I'm a.
beginning.
I would
Yeah,
say
novice seems a
I
little
think
bad.
novice is a very fair word, but yeah, I'm like your typical Bud Light, Miller Lite, Stella, Peroni. Like that's my wheelhouse.
So we were at a brewery, which we won't talk about right now to discredit your name at all. And Brad literally looks at the waitress and says, "I want the lightest beer you possibly have."
Well, he's a Xavier player. That's just.
Oh, makes sense.
God, I
Yeah.
knew that we were going down this road, and then I'm opening up Pandora's box to ridicule from all of you, which is
Yes.
fantastic.
Speaking of Xavier,
Well,
I noticed there is a Stainbrook jersey over there, and definitely not a Redford.
Oh.
I'm not speaking to that. I mean, this is his establishment here.
One is a beautiful gentleman that comes in and drinks craft beer and loves craft beer, and the other is
a
not.
Bud Light guy.
It's pretty fair.
So as a Bud Light guy, where do you start? I mean, we have a couple beers in front of us right now. I mean, one looks like a nice, light, clean. The other one slightly heavier. So, I mean, would you think one of these beers could work for myself?
I do not.
Okay.
But you never know. That's why you got to try them.
All right. So what are these two right here?
So we have two beers here. The yellow-looking one is actually a project we did with the Xavier design program, where we had a design contest for their students to design a label for the cans. So that one is a New England IPA.
Okay, so there's no doubt that IPAs, they are everywhere. But if you try the wrong one first, you might not try it again. West Coast IPAs are aggressively hopped, and a first-time IPA drinker might not be a fan of this style. So if you're looking to get into IPAs, but you haven't found the right one, maybe start with a New England IPA. The hops are there, but the bitterness won't stand out as much.
It's going to be very light and fruity. The specific one we have here is more of a watermelon fruitiness and juiciness to it than more like a mango sort of thing. So
Okay, and so why would like a beer drinker like myself maybe not enjoy these so much?
it's just not the typical light lager that you're used to.
Okay, I'm going to give it a shot.
There is
shot. It's
no,
nice and fruity.
there is
I'm
no
gonna
chance.
I'm going to go ahead and start with the light one here.
No chance that he
I'm gonna
likes the
take-
IPA.
I'm going to take a nice little drink here.
He'll be polite on camera though.
So it's a New England IPA. So most IPAs
Ooh.
are bitter. These ones are lighter and fruitier than the typical IPAs.
Yeah, I actually don't mind that one.
Really?
I mean, to be honest with you, like if I came here, I would probably enjoy that, and I would probably drink it. I actually did like that one.
Good.
So,
Good for you, Brad.
all right, the Bud Light guy likes one. All right, number 2 here is making me a little bit nervous just because the color is a little bit
Aggressive?
dark, and I feel like the light one that was kind of more a little fruitiness. I like that to it. It was nice and clean. And this one here again,
This actually has fruit in it. So we
Oh.
partnered.
so I might love this
We
one.
partnered with Arnold's and their chef to make a brut. So a brut is like a newer version of IPAs. It's higher carbonation, kind of like champagne, like a little bit of West Coast bitterness. But this one we made it an old fashioned brut. So it's got those oranges and cherries in it, kind of like an old fashioned.
Oh, this kind of seems
I
might be up
see.
your alley.
I see.
here.
I like old fashions. Big fan of those. Had one last night. Actually,
Is that why you were a little late this morning?
No, I wasn't late. Well, actually, I was late because I forgot the Tervis tumbler for Jason, and I
Oh.
had to drive home. back. See, I like that one too. I actually like that one better.
I figured that you'd like
Yeah.
the watermelon a little
God,
better.
I do. I like both of them.
Well, the brute makes sense. That's something that you would like, and it's a little bit of a lighter, sweeter taste than the IPA.
So Brute, I'm gonna have to write this down. So Brad likes the Brute. I'm gonna keep that
I wouldn't
down.
say all bruts. That one just typically has fruit.
Yeah,
Okay.
that one's
Yeah.
real nice.
Your palate is expanding in front of us, Brad.
It is unbelievable. So I
I
mean,
actually did write that down. It wasn't just a.
Oh, he does. He takes notes. He's a
no,
note
I do.
taker.
I'm a notes guy because I do. I go back and I will look into it and I'll investigate it. That's why. Like you should see my whole iPhone is literally just notes of things people tell me to watch. Like if you tell me to watch something, like I will watch it. Like no doubt about it. So and we went in the back and checking out all the barrels. I mean, it's like an artistry to watch you guys go back there, talk about what you're doing, the makeup of it. I mean, the culture of beer is real. I mean, it really is. And I can tell when I walk in, I talk with you guys, the importance of it. So can you kind of talk to what goes into the beer that I just drank?
Sure. So, they're both kind of different from one. One's a collaboration where we brought the chef from Arnold's in and talked about what beer she liked, what flavor she liked. Our head brewer and her and our staff talked, and figured out, what to make a beer that she would like. So that's where that one came from. And the other one is just kind of trying different hop combinations to get the final product.
Okay, so there are 4 main ingredients when it comes to producing your favorite beer. water, malt, yeast, and of course, hops. Hops are almost always talked about when it comes to craft beer. The more hops that are added, especially at the beginning, usually means a stronger IPA or a bitter beer.
That one was supposed to be a little bit more watermelon-y versus, kind of like a little spring flair versus just our typical mango peachy type of IPAs that we do. So it was a little bit, going off of what we have and what we don't have and kind of filling some gaps in between there.
So when you do that, at the same time, do you make multiple renditions and just know what they are, and then you have to sit and let them ferment and do their thing, and then you go back and say, we liked option 1, and then you...
No.
It's,
our head brewers went to college for it. He's been in the brewing industry forever, it seems, and he's awesome. And it's kind of like a chef. Like, you have this ingredient, you know what it's going to add to the dish. You don't have to try it out. Sometimes you do because it's a new ingredient, but then we don't make enough beer where it's that big of a deal to try it out. We know the base of the beer is going to be fine. What is this new ingredient going to do? We'll just make a big batch of it.
Okay. You just go straight for it.
Yeah, it kind of speaks to our roots, too, as home brewers, especially having the homebrew store here. Experimentation runs in our blood, and that's just, something we look forward to.
It's pretty awesome.
And kind of speaking to that foundation, Dan and Sue Listermann, they were kind of the two that initiated Listermann Brewing Company. So for some further background here, Dan and Sue Listermann, they started manufacturing and shipping homebrew parts back in 1991. The current home base for Listermann Brewing Company, where we're having the interview today, that was purchased 4 years later in 1995. How involved are Dan and Sue at this time?
Yeah, Sue does all of our books here. She's here 3-4 days a week and working from home probably the other 2 days. And then Dan is here almost every day. He likes to say he's semi-retired. You could probably...
Still putting in 40 weeks, semi-retired.
Yeah. And if Smoke Bacca's on draft, you could probably come find him at the bar drinking that.
All right.
Gotcha.
And your team, you guys don't just come in here at 4 o'clock, start drinking beers, and then go from there into free for all. You guys are here early. You're up. You're at it. You're marketing. You're planning events. There's a lot that goes into building what you guys have here.
Absolutely. Yeah, we don't just sit around and drink beer all day.
Any upcoming events you would like to discuss?
An event we have coming up is our anniversary party. It'll be our 11th anniversary. Last year we did a pretty big festival for our 10th, but it rained the entire time. The only time it didn't rain, started at 5 p.m. on Friday. It rained from 4:30 to 7:45 Sunday night, and it ended at 8 o'clock Sunday night. So we got 15 minutes of non-rain time for our anniversary party. So trying to think of different ways to have our anniversary party. Every time we throw a festival, we've thrown 15 festivals, and a lot owned by Xavier on Idlewild over there, and 14 of them it has poured down raining for the majority of the festival.
Man.
Wow.
Whoa.
It's like we should be in business.
You're due for one.
We should be in business in deserts saying if you need rain, we'll throw a festival there. We'll bring it to you.
Listermann's the Rainmakers.
Yes.
As a UC fan, you're working so close to Xavier's campus. How do you work through that emotionally?
It was difficult at first, but 7 years will beat down on you. But hosting Xavier pre-games here, you get to meet a lot of Xavier fans, and there was a lot of great people there. So I can't necessarily hate Xavier fans like I used to.
Right.
But
but you're not in the Cintas Center, fist pump when Trayvon Blewett hits a 3, or when Travis Steele is lit up when he goes off the court after a big W. You're not that guy that's excited for them.
Not that much, no.
But maybe down the road, possibly.
No, well, we also do a lot of work with Xavier classes. I'm working with 2 marketing classes this quarter. A bunch of Xavier students send us projects and whatnot. So we're pretty involved with Xavier as an institution.
How does Xavier basketball affect business? Pretty heavily?
It's great. A lot of people have downturns in the winter, and that's our busiest time. We have shoulder to shoulder in our tap room for 20 days.
Right.
That you can't pay for things like that.
Yeah.
You can by location, but we kind of lucked into this
Great
location.
free marketing.
Yeah, absolutely. So Xavier's been a great partner with us. They use our parking lot, and I have nothing. I used to hate Xavier with a passion. Now it's just like, I want them to go 30-1.
There you go.
And one.
That's fair.
It's a key one, though.
It is indeed.
All right, so Jason, what's the best way for listeners to follow Listermann Brewing Company and events that they'll have?
Facebook and Instagram. We really don't spend a lot of money on alternative media sites, so if we'll post everything we ever do on Facebook, and then Instagram is also in tandem with that.
All right, and then if you're someone that wants to get into the beer industry like yourself, I mean, what advice would you have for somebody that's maybe starting out?
It's a lot harder now. There's a lot more people that are qualified to do this sort of thing and that want to do this sort of thing. So, back in the day when we posted a job interview or job posting, we'd get 4 or 5 resumes. We were hiring a new marketing manager, and I've gotten 70 resumes in 24 hours.
Jeez.
So familiarity is a big part.
It's a great problem to have, though.
It is, except I now have to read through 70 resumes. But very excited for the potential candidates that we have. But anyways, so familiarity is big. So going to breweries, hanging out, and talking to the staff, and so they get to know you on a more personal level. And then when your resume comes up or a job comes up, that's there. It moves to the top of the pile because you already know the person and know if they're, or maybe moves to the bottom of the pile. Just be a good person for that. So that's kind of how I got my start here. I hung around. Listermann was one of the only breweries in town and was closest to me, and I was a huge beer nerd. And Listermann was making beer, so I was over here talking beer with the guys working here. And so when they had that job opening pop up, it was just kind of an easy fit for me to move into that role.
Do you have a favorite beer that is carried here?
It's actually on draft right now. It's called 99 Problems, but a beer ain't one.
Nice. Great name.
Nice.
What is it?
It's a New England IPA. So hip-hop originated on the East Coast. So with an East Coast IPA, like a New England IPA, we do a lot of hip-hop references to that. And then in turn, proceeds of those beers go to a local hip-hop organization called Elements.
Oh, nice.
What is the weirdest beer that you've had when you've gone to the conventions, and what is just the weirdest beer from any brewery that you've had?
Oh man,
I know you've probably had about 2,000 different ones, but
I would say I don't know about the weirdest, but I can tell you the worst one I've had.
Oh, okay.
Oh, I'm down
like
for that.
So there is a brewery called Firestone Walker in California, and I'm a big fan of theirs, especially their Pilsner.
Okay, so just for a fun fact on Pilsners, because I felt like throwing it in there, the first Pilsner dates back to the early 1800s. Want to take a guess where the Pilsner was discovered? That's right, you got it. It was in the Czech Republic in the city of Pilsen.
And they have a barrel-aged beer called Parabola, this is probably why it's the worst beer for me, because regular Parabola is a fantastic barrel-aged beer, and if we could make anything close to that, I'd be super happy. But they aged it in Scotch barrels. And so it was a super smoky and peaty version of that, and I was so excited. Yeah, and that's probably why it's the worst. My expectations were so high, and then it was just a smoky mess that I just did not like. And some people like that. That's their thing. Smoke is not my thing. I don't even know why I tried it. I knew I wouldn't like it, but I didn't know I wouldn't like it
And
that
yet
much.
you still set the bar so high.
Yeah, because it's Parabola. Who doesn't want to drink Parabola?
So talk about the naming process. I'm always really intrigued on how you guys come up. 99 Problems But a Beer I Want is fantastic. I get
Thank
the
you.
East Coast origin, like the hip-hop. But the rest of the beers, they're all unique names. Is it just drinking beers, brainstorming session?
It's a little bit of that. It's a little bit of, we've done some Dragon Ball Z beers, and some of our brewers are really into Dragon Ball Z. So we, kind of let them run with that. And, some follow a certain naming pattern like IPAs. If we're gonna do a New England IPA, we'll toss around some hot pun beer names. So it's really kind of anybody can name anything if the idea works with the beer.
do you homebrew or anything like that? Or
no, because if I want a beer,
you just
we'll
give it, yeah.
have them make it.
When you do have
And they make it a lot better than I can.
you have a homebrew competition coming up, don't you?
We do. It's going to be in the beginning of May, and that beer will actually be. So we do a New England IPA homebrew contest. We do a couple different categories, but that winner's beer will actually be released in the first weekend of July.
Oh, awesome.
Big
I'll have to
time.
look out for it.
Yeah,
and that one's
maybe
just
I'll
called-
enter. After everything that I've learned today
Everything that you've learned
during
today.
this podcast, I may very well enter that podcast.
Are you
enter that contest?
Is the beer going to be ready by next weekend?
Yeah, I might have to do some research on expediting.
Just take some
but-
labels off some beer you find
Yeah.
at Kroger and submit it.
Great idea. Let's delete that from the podcast. I'll be here next week. So, well, Jason, thank you so much for your time, and we appreciate you
this is
allowing
great.
us to be here. We always end with the same question, and we will with every person that we talk to when we go to the breweries is, part of Be Different is really diving into the culture of Cincinnati and highlighting people doing really cool stuff in the area. And we just kind of want to know what makes you and your team different here at Listermann Brewing Company.
So what makes us different is I believe we do one of the best bourbon barrel age programs in the country, if the state, if not the country. So if you really like bourbon and bourbon barrel age beers, we are the place to go for that. We also do New England IPAs very well. If you like hoppy but not bitter beers, we're a great place to come. And we also have a huge community involvement. You know, we've given Team Fiona, we've given $75,000 plus back to the zoo. We usually have something going on with our beers to give money back. So we're really big believers in community involvement.
All right, Jason, you are the man. We appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks, Jason.
Thanks for your time,
Yeah,
bud.
thanks for having me.
Yeah, for Brad Redford, Nick Given, Greg Wichard, and Jason Brewer, the best beer name in Cincinnati, we are out of here.